In the beginning of 2021, my team and I did the biggest launch we'd ever done in the history of the company. But there's something really interesting that happened during our runway. Our runway consisted of a 2-day boot camp. And this boot camp had the most engagement, the highest amount of attendees, the biggest show up rate. It was the biggest thing we had done during the entire launch, but it wasn't our main sales mechanism. Well, today's guest is going to walk us through how he's using online virtual events to scale and grow his business. In fact, this is a process that we're going to start incorporating into our business even more. So I can't wait to share his story with you about how he's uncovered this, how he's brought it to life, and how he is scaling his business and other people's using this process. So if you're interested, well, keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today's episode is going to be a good one. Today we're going to talk about story, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship, we're even going to talk about a new sales mechanism that seems to be working really, really well. And today I have Jesse Eker on the call with us. So Jesse, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I am super stoked to be here with you and your audience. And I'm excited to share my story and the mechanism that we've been using. So
yeah, man, I'm excited to dive into it. For those of the listeners who may not know who you are, do you mind just giving a little bit background of who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah. So my name is Jesse and I am the founder of Build Your Brand Online. We really specialize in helping online entrepreneurs sell more of their product and service using online virtual events. So that's what we do and how we do it.
Cool. Yeah, I know, like, we've worked together a little bit, and when you started telling me about what you were doing, I was so drawn into it because when we've done our launches, we like our virtual events, we'd do like a little virtual boot camp or something like that. They get more live attendees on these boot camps than we did our actual sales mechanism, like double the amount. And I was just like, what the heck is going on? Why are people coming to these boot camps? And I told my team, I'm like, we should be pitching at these boot camps. Like, people are fired up and they're ready. And I feel like it's almost kind of stupid to just wait 3 more months and then do a live video series launch. We need to like think about some new ways of doing things. And then I got introduced to you and you started telling me about this. And I was like, that like you're on to something. And I'm really excited to get into it. We'll get into it a little bit later, but I am curious about your story. Like, how did you end up doing what you do today? And how did you get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So great question. So most people don't know who I am, but a lot of people recognize my last name, which is Eker, and they know who my dad is. So my dad, his name's T. Harv Eker, wrote the book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, one of the most known personal finance books of all time, right? And so, growing up with this dad who basically lived, breathed in the event industry. So he wrote the book to get more people. He was like the first person to write a book to get more people to his events. It wasn't that was his mechanism. And he was the one who kind of started that of, you get two free tickets when you buy the book, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like that was his mechanism to get people into the event. And so like I grew up with my dad being in the event industry. He didn't actually start successful, obviously, when I was a kid. Like my first 13 years, we were very middle class, like nothing went on. We moved up to Vancouver, Canada. He came up with the idea. He wrote this book. Then our lives like completely changed as far as like very different lifestyles of what started to happen.
Just from one book, like that book, that is it. The Secret of the Millionaire Mind. That's the book that changed everything.
So it was more of like the system that he had that the book put like fuel to the fire.
Got it.
So without this, and I think this is a great business concept for everyone to understand as well, is most people are like, oh, I write the book and I'll get like all this audience and publicity and like people will know who I am, but they don't have a system to really capitalize on what they've done. And
Right.
so he had a system, and the book put him in the forefront of so many places. Media got so much attention, but the system is what really drove the growth of the company. And so when I was able to see that as a kid, first of all, I recognized what the difference of like what really hard work really meant, like to like run a really successful business. But I knew like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. At the same time, though, I was going through high school and had some, high school habits of being with friends and partying and doing the things that I wanted to do. And I wasn't really like necessarily had the habits of an entrepreneur or habits of a successful person. And so the thing that really kickstarted me was a conversation with my dad when I went to college. And he basically was like, since I like kind of like just got myself through high school, right. He basically said, like, because I went to Arizona State University, he said, if you don't get a 3.0 average, you're going to have to pay for school. And for me, that was a bigger average than normal. And then he said, the next thing that I would never forget, he said, you know what, Jess, I got to just say this. You got to recognize that you have a broke person's habits. And if you want to be successful, you need to have successful people habits. You say you want to get rich, you say you want to start a business, you say you want to do these things. None of those things are what are aligned with your actions.
Can I ask what some of those broke habits were that you had?
Yeah. So procrastination was a big one. Big one was integrity, saying I would do something, but not doing it. Wow. Right. So not following through. Not following through on what I said I was going to do. That was a huge one. And that's a massive one that most people don't do.
Right.
It would be like, just like forgetting about stuff, or just like not just doing it. Like, so like when it came to like studying, which is, just like, it is what it is. I would not study. I would just show up. Right. And that's how a lot of people show up for their business. They just show up. There's no preparation. There's no planning. There's no strategic thinking. There's no, how do I make this really work the most efficient way? It's, let me just show up every single day and figure out what I'm going to do. Right.
Yeah.
That's why most people don't do very well, is because they are just showing up versus proactively going after stuff. So I think those were my big ones. Okay. And also like, I wanted to have fun. I was like,
you're a kid.
I wasn't serious about anything, but that was a kick in the ass. And it was a challenge for me to step up and, prove my dad that, hey, I'm not going to be a broke person. I'm going to be a successful person.
Right.
That's what started me in the transactions of looking for problems to solve. And that's really, what I learned from him is entrepreneurs are problem solvers. We just look for problems to solve. And my first go at that was out of college. I was in a real estate business. They were fixing and flipping. Their problem was they didn't have enough money. I had a great Rolodex of a network. So I started a side hustle of solving their problem, became their exclusive private lender. It was my first $1 million business at the age of 25.
Wow.
And, yeah.
So were you more of like the middleman? You would find like the deals going on and then you would line them up with money. Is that what was going on?
So I made a deal with them as an exclusive lender that I would be their money person if they gave me their deals.
Okay.
And so they were in it was through the recession, and I was in Arizona actually at the time, which I am in now.
Yeah.
It was hit the hardest, some of the hardest in the nation. And so they just had deals all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was like just needed money. And so like my job was really just lining up money at extremely high interest for very short-term loans. And that's where we just made the bulk of our money. It was just, rinse and repeating this. And we probably did, I want to say like 95 deals the first year and like 180 deals the second year.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's
and it was
insane.
But the thing is, I never had to find the deal, but I had to do the due diligence as a lender, which I don't want to get into it, but driving the property and getting all of that. And I had my first, entrepreneurship of having a team of drivers who go to the properties and send me reports, and I'd have to look at the reports and decide at what level I want to lend them to.
Yeah.
And that's where I started to really like see like the okay, this is what entrepreneurship is. And this is a problem I solved. And I was doing it really well. And the market was paying me for that. So,
And did you have just one, was it just one person that was giving you all those deals? And
yeah,
then,
it was one company. Yeah.
okay. And then when you were lining up the money, did you just had a bunch, was it like personal investors? Were they like, like mortgage companies that you're lining up? Like it's more of a personal question. Just curious of like,
Yeah.
how'd you find the money?
Yeah, it was private. So, obviously through my dad, he had his own connections of people.
Okay.
And we kind of just created like a friends and family type fund, right? And we basically just, started to do it close. And then when we ran out of money, we started to hit more friends and family and just kind of created like more of a very well high net worth group of people that had kind of, I don't want to say unlimited funds, but like for this type of funding, it worked well. Like the deals we were landing on were like $100,000 to $200,000 homes. So, they'd fix them up in 30 to 60 days. So it was pretty easy to replenish.
Right.
You didn't need a big pot for us to really work on.
Makes sense.
And, and their interest rate that they were getting as we were getting was like enormous because of the fast flips that they were doing. So it just worked out really well for what we wanted. And that first venture that I went into.
That's amazing. So what happened to that business?
So I kind of got bored of what I was doing and I didn't want to expand. So I knew I didn't want to be in Arizona anymore. And I knew I didn't really like the industry that I was being in as being the lender. I wasn't really into growing it. Gotcha. And so I kind of just started doing some soul searching of what I wanted to do. And the main thing I wanted to do was the opposite of what my dad did in some level. So what I loved about what my dad did was the events, is the transformations, the personal growth, people having like breakthroughs of, coming in one way, coming out the other way. That was so cool to me, where it was like this identity shift of like what people really came in for. And then they just were a different person when they left. Now, whether they kept that habit going or not, wasn't something that I was like, thinking about, but like I love that transformation that a real event could do, a good event at least.
Right.
What I hated was him traveling 250 to 270 days a year. Like hated that.
Right.
So when I went to him, I said, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. What should I do? You're the person that I can go to for mentorship. What should I do? And he said, I heard this thing called blogging, right? It's like, you can like blog. And I was like, blog? What is blogging, right? This was 2011.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So this is like, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I went to go do some research of like how this works, how this would go. And one of the things that I noticed was I wanted to sell information online that I did my research on, but I wasn't an expert in anything other than the real estate thing, but I didn't want to get into that.
Right.
And so what I said was, well, I'm not an expert in something, but my dad is. And so I basically was like, hey, what if I started your legacy and brand online and use your seminars, live events, but did it online in a way that you could reach more people and build your online presence, because you're just not doing that right now.
Right.
And that's what started the second venture, Harbecker Online, which is still running today. I still do manage it. And it's been 10 years since we've run that business. And we sell Harv's principles, methodologies, and learnings online for different topics for people to enjoy on the personal and financial success side.
I love that. So you basically took his business online, essentially.
Yeah, wow. Exactly.
And that must have been tough to do, especially because technology 10 years ago is not what it was today, like social media and all that stuff. Like, I mean, blogs were the newest thing.
I know. Then. It was like,
so, what was the first thing you guys did to transition an offline to an online back in 2011?
The first thing that we actually did was we didn't think about his live in-person seminars at the time. We actually were like, let's create something new, because that was like in the heat of them still doing the live seminars, and we didn't know if it was going to compete too much with it. And so we actually created this like random coaching program, which 10 years ago, no one had coaching programs. Right. And it was all about like holistically making your life better. And that was our first time of doing webinars and doing, I think we were using like Stealth Seminar at the
Oh
time.
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we were doing that. And everything was custom and everything would break and it would be a disaster. But we did that and, we started to do it. And then we were like, we made it pretty successful. We were doing like, $50,000 a month, I would say. And we're like, how do we do more, expand it? And my dad was like, well, I've got more products. Like I got my other seminars. That's when we started to realize that we could take the audios from the live seminars, cut them up into module type products, and then put them online as topic based products for personal growth and financial success.
Gotcha.
And then we created 8 different style of those webinar funnels.
Yeah.
Those things. And if you actually go to our site, you could still see them rolling right now, but they're
That's
obviously improved over 10 years, but that's
Yeah.
kind of like how we scaled that business so quickly and how we have continued to keep it sustainable.
Gotcha. Okay. Back then, this is more of like a technical, not technical,
Yeah.
but more of just how things were set up type of question. But did you come in as like an employee underneath his company? Did you have a third party company that was like a contractor doing this work for him? Like, how did you guys structure the relationship to do all of this stuff?
Yeah. So, originally it was my idea to do it, but at the same time, it was his IP and his business
Right.
that I had to come into. So I did come in as an employee, worked my way up to becoming a profit share equity owner of it. Right.
Okay. Cool.
And now it actually, he licensed his stuff to him. So he licensed it to me. Sorry.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
So now all of that brand is under my business. So I took it over and I pay him a license fee, royalty fee on every sale that we get. So that's the evolution of how that kind of has gone over 10 years.
Yeah. And that's a good setup for him. Like he doesn't have to worry about any of the responsibility that comes along with running a business. He basically just gets a check from you guys each month and you guys do all the selling and you scale it. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's nice passive income for him. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's amazing. Okay. And then that was 2011. And it sounds like you're still doing that. You're still responsible for all that. So that's been like a 10-year journey, right? Is that correct?
About a decade. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then you were doing that from 2011 to today, and you're continuing to do that. Did you do any other ventures, businesses, or anything during that time?
Not until last year. So no. Yeah, I was, one of the things is like I felt so lucky and blessed with the opportunity of coming into the online world with a brand.
Yeah.
And like that brand equity had fans and loyalty and built-in audience. And it was like, all I needed to do was put the sales mechanisms together. It's not all you need to do, but put your sales mechanisms together, create, a good flow and customer journey of how we wanted to do this. And then just keep pushing it. And this is the times that like ads were cheap. I was running ads, getting $3 leads. Like everything was easy compared to now, right? There was no one online. Like it was easy to get to the top really quickly with that asset. So I was just, guns blazing, foot on the gas pedal, like do not lose focus, because it was like a time where it's like work for 5 years and you set yourself up for the next 20, right?
Yep, totally. It's like when Google clicks were like a penny, like back in the day. It was the wild, wild west. And I remember Facebook ads. Like I remember sometimes running campaigns and they were like, you get leads for under $1. I mean, it was just stupid how easy it was and how cheap the leads were. And now it's like $20 leads and all, it's harder now. It's for sure. Yeah,
it's way harder. At least $20 leads. I was paying like $45 a lead recently, and I was like, what is going on? But the thing is, like, when you're in it, you don't know it, that this is the time. But now being in it for so long, seeing different opportunities of like when things start to happen, not jumping ship, but like seeing like when things are working, like you can see like it's time to hit the gas really hard. Yeah. And that's similar to like what we're doing right now. Right time, right place, right opportunity. And I know we'll get to that, but you
Yeah.
know, when you've gone through a lot of it, like that's why, like for me and you, like we've been in this for a while,
Right.
we can see really easily hindsight, like what were some of the difference makers. And you can also see like opportunity wise, you know, when things are lined up, like when you push and when you push hard, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm sure you even saw some of that with your dad too, because it sounds like the first part of your childhood, the first 12 years, it was like, I mean, it sounds like he was making an income, but it doesn't sound like he was like super, super successful. So you even were able to see him kind of grow that business and probably see him, you know, go pedal to the metal when things are hot or when things are taking off and be able
Yeah.
to model that. Was it hard growing up with a dad who was like growing a business to that level? Like, were there things that you wish were different, or are you just grateful for the lessons, or maybe a little bit of both? Like, how was that experience?
I would say I wouldn't know that it was hard because that wasn't something that like necessarily like clicked like, oh, it's like hard being in this, like him being, it was just the norm,
Right.
right?
That
Like it
makes
was
sense.
just like this was just like the way it was. What I did recognize though, which is important for I think a lot of entrepreneurs to make sure that they're recognizing with their kids, is understanding like, you know, belief mechanisms that are formed based off of different results. And so what I mean by that is like making more money equaled for him working harder, working longer.
Uh,
And so one of the beliefs was that like, you know, has been ingrained for a lot, and especially for myself, was like, if you want to make money, you got to work harder, you got to work longer.
right.
Right. Because I saw that and it was just like an unconscious thing. And that's something that I've really tried to like get rid of for like the longest time for myself, which is why I create strict boundaries with my, you know, kids and my family and all these things so that I can not have that belief and not have that conditioning of the way that I want it to be. So I would say that like unconsciously, if you're not aware of this stuff, you're not enlightened, if you're not looking at it in an objective way, then you're going to start to unconsciously have different beliefs based off of what you see, what you hear, and what you're experiencing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think not knowing, not being in the thick of it, not seeing it, being out of it, seeing like making choices radically different as far as, you know, not traveling and not have to like working for travel, like work travel for luxury and fun, not necessity, right?
Right.
Like being able to make those choices based off of what I didn't love and what I was, you know, what I really wanted my kids to experience, which I have two young ones.
How did you get to that level of thinking or awareness? I mean, because you know, a lot of it, like you said, a lot of it's like a unconscious or a subconscious thing. Like your dad's working hard, or maybe he's saying certain things. It kind of like you're not really thinking about it, but you just live your life with this belief. There's got to be a point where you become aware of like, oh my gosh, this is what's been running in my life. Did your dad help you come to that, or was that a self realization thing that you had to come to on your own?
Yeah, like this is like the whole premise of like my dad's teaching of like starting with it with his money. So I was very lucky as far as being 16, starting to go through personal development and personal growth at a really young age. But it was more the factors of dealing with the factors of what I was going through at those specific times and using those lessons as far as like when I'm feeling certain ways to kind of look back and say like, what is bringing me to this? Why am I starting to create these, like what's my habits behind this, like what's my thinking behind it, what are the stories I'm creating? And it's just like, you know, like anything, just consistent work on the foundations of what it is. Like
Yeah.
it never goes away, right?
Right.
Like you're always going on a roller coaster. Every day is different, every second is different, right? Like
Yeah.
1 second you're extremely happy and then something breaks and now you're like, what is going on with my business? What's going on? It's going down, right?
Right.
So you know, it's just constant work and there's new people coming out and it's being open to it, I think, is the first one. But like I know in your program, like you talk a lot about beliefs
Yeah.
and mindset behind it. And so, you know, you have these different mentors and different people that continue to talk about it in different ways that hit you in different ways to be able to recognize things at different stages in your life, I would say.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like, he may have given you the tools, or you had the tools, and then you just kind of had to use them yourself and paying attention to the lessons from other mentors and stuff like that. But it is like that internal self-awareness that you have to process you have to kind of go through. And it is funny because it doesn't end. And this year, for like me specifically, and even my wife and our family, like it's been a year of growth. Like I think I've experienced, my wife has experienced, we as a couple have experienced, my family's experienced more growth in this year, honestly, probably than the last like 8 years combined. Like it's been a massive growth for us. And my wife's like, I'm just so tired of like growing and working on myself. And then I'm like, sorry, babe, but it's like, this is going to be the rest of our life. You know, like once you become aware of all of this stuff, there's no going back, but it's a constant journey. And sometimes you get to a point where you're like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to grow anymore. I just want to relax.
I almost feel like it's like everyone was forced to grow 10x in the last 2 years and in their own way. And everyone's got their different things that they're going through. But everything seems to be so amplified and heightened in certain ways and certain challenges and obstacles that we've just never experienced before. And so it's just, very interesting that every person that I talk to seems to be going through something on an ongoing basis. It's like one thing after another. And it's like, that's what I feel like everyone is doing. And me and my wife do the same. Like this year for us, like we moved states and, we had another kid, and it's just like the adjustment periods that we've been going through, like having to like step in to be more of a team, even more and more and more. It's just like, it's crazy. So, I think we're all going through something.
Yeah.
As always, right? But 100%. Now it's like 10x still.
It is. It totally is. I want to get back to the story, but I do have a question about the dynamic of you and your wife and family and kids. So you have 2 kids, and then does your wife have a business too, or help you in the business, or she just stay home mom? Like what does your guys' like dynamic look like?
So before kids, she was my yin to the yang, right? I was marketing sales. She was operations and product delivery.
Okay.
And we created the whole Harvecker brand together, like as that duo.
How long have you guys been together?
So we started at 19 and we've been together for 14 years and married for 7.
That's like my wife and I, we started dating when we were 15 and 16. And then,
oh God, that's even more.
Yeah. Not by much though. I mean, we were youngins, and I'm 38 now. So we've been together for like 20 something years, but very similar process, or not process, story. So, okay. And then when you guys had kids, did that change?
First kid, it was like more like, take a little break, enjoy this and see what happens. And then I ended up starting my brand, right? My second one. And then she actually was coming back to work. And then our second one happened. It was another break. And then she then started coming back to work again. And then just some personal things happened where she just wanted to take the time to create space for the kids and what she was doing. So now she is, I guess we are stay-at-home people, both of us. We both work from home, but she is taking the household responsibilities, which is way harder, I think, than what I do.
It's the same thing here. Like when we had our first son, my wife actually supported us for a while, and we were living with her parents, my in-laws. We were too broke to pay for rent or anything like that. And she actually supported us. And then when we had our son, she's like, I think she took about 3 months off and then went back to work for about 3 months. And she's like, gave me a deadline. She's like, you need to get this business up and running, because I'm not going to like walk away from my baby every day while you, and I would watch him during the day. When she came home, I would actually go to work. So I'd work from the afternoon to like the middle of the night. And that's what we did for a lot of years. But that came a point where she's like, I just want that time and that space. Like my kids are only going to be young once. And so that's what she does. She runs the household, does the whole kid thing. And for us, like, at least for me, I can check in at a certain time and check out at a certain time, but it's a 24/7 job to be that stay-at-home parent. It's a lot of work, a lot of freaking work.
I texted, my wife went away to South Beach and I was with the kids. I had like family, some help, but I texted her and I was like, I'm I'm not cut out for this. I'm not, I'm like, I like, you got to come back.
You gotta come back. Please come back. Yeah, that's the same
like,
way.
respect, bow down. No, I've always respected it to the max, but you
Yeah.
get to experience it. Yeah, it's crazy.
I know my wife went to Australia with her mom for like a week, a couple years ago, like a week-long trip. And I was just like counting down the days. I'm like, okay, 5 days left, 4 days left, 3 days. She got home. I was like, yes. Amazing. Okay, cool. So where we left off on the story was basically you'd been doing that for like 10 years, which you're still doing it today. And then a year ago you started an additional business, which is what you're doing today. And is that the personal event business, or not the personal, but the event, virtual event business?
Yeah. So I started the brand based off more needs of how do I continue to support the business? Because my dad was really stepping out of like, really didn't want to do any more content creation, didn't want to do anything. So it was like, how do I keep this thing going?
Right.
With like, what do I need to do to keep it going? And so I started to do some coaching to like help business principles of like online entrepreneurs. And what I started doing the coaching, like one of the things that I started to notice as a big problem, because remember, we're problem solvers, right?
Yeah.
Was the biggest thing that people are having issues with is really creating like a client acquisition system. And like people could do client acquisition, meaning like, how do you get new customers or new clients? They didn't have a system. Like it was like chaos.
Right.
And when we've talked about this, it's like, it literally is chaos when you talk to like any online entrepreneurs or solopreneurs. It's like blogging, webinars, posting, doing this. There's no, it's like book, create this. It's so complex. And people have just made it so much harder because there's so many different people pushing so many different stuff.
Right. Yep.
And so you're like, oh, I need this. Oh, I need this shiny object over here. Oh, I need this. And again, being in a position of being a multi-7-figure business, looking back, like you don't need all of that stuff.
No.
It's when you are not that inexperienced or don't have those results that you think you still do.
Right.
Right. And so when I was coaching these students, I was like, we don't need any of this. We just need like one audience builder, one sales mechanism, one product.
Yep. And
then I started to like think about like what we can do to do this. But what ended up happening was we have a similar friend, Jill, right? And I was actually listening to her on a podcast. I think it was Amy Porterfield's podcast, and she was talking about a challenge. I reached out to her and I was like, hey, can I pay you to teach me your challenge method? And she was like, oh crap, you're Harv Eker's son. Like she was like, you don't have to pay me. Let's just jam. And so we jammed, and I ended up, using her methods to create a challenge. And we did like almost $500,000 with that challenge.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, this is cool.
Yeah.
Let's do this again. And
what did you sell at the challenge? What were you selling?
We sell Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins product through the launch.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I started realizing that then it was like challenges are great, awesome. But then I started to realize like, it's not the challenge, it's the mechanism of this live modality of getting people together around a topic where you're the authority, you're the expert, and you can demonstrate really your expertise, but also the process of how you get people outcomes and results. And just kept doing it and refining it and kept doing it. And we started to just, really get good at it. And we started teaching it, and our clients started getting really good results with it. And we just realized that we were really onto something, not only with the mechanism and the simplicity of it, but the times of like, okay, now we're going through COVID, everyone's home. Like now we have the tools of Zoom to be able to do these at scale. Like it was just like perfect timing of the whole sequence of events. And that's kind of where we started this new company called Build Your Brand Online. And again, we use online events to build that brand. but it's really what we call like an all-in-one marketing system, marketing and sales system. It helps you with your audience building, it helps you with your sales, and it helps you sell more of the product in a shorter period of time.
Yeah. Okay. So much to unpack there.
Okay.
The first thing, yeah, I guess the first thing I want to talk about is the concept that you mentioned is like one thing, like one source of traffic or one lead generation, one funnel, one sales mechanism, one offer. And I think that's such a valuable lesson for a lot of people to learn, because there are so many ways to do so many things, and and all of them work. And that's the problem, is that all of them can work. And same thing with us, like inside of our company, we've obviously seen massive growth over the last 3 years. And so we've just been growing and growing and growing. And then that opens up more things like, okay, like let's do TikTok, let's do LinkedIn, let's do this, let's do that. And we just added so many things to our plate. And what started happening was teams started getting bigger, expenses are getting bigger. But the problem is, and we also had an agency at the same time. And so we were also like running other people's stuff, and it became minimal efforts. Like it came like 50 minimal efforts versus 100% effort on like a couple things. And this year we decided, like, our business last year did 2.1 million, 600,000 of that came from our agency. So like maybe 40% of our revenues for the agency. And I said, kill the agency and let's go all in on our stuff. Let's limit what we're doing. And this year will be, I don't know, 2-4-ish, somewhere in there. So we're going to do a little bit more, but that's also without that 600,000 like nest egg of the agency. And even what I just told Matt and Taylor, who are my leadership team, I told them, this moving into 2022, I want to do way less. Like, I want to work less. I want you guys to work less. And I just want to do it really effing well. And that process of one thing, I think, is the biggest lesson that people can learn, because you get mastery over that too. You can master that method, or how to present, or how to lead gen and all that stuff. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I think it's such a valuable lesson for a lot of people to learn.
Let me share one principle that changed my life.
Sure.
And something that I really would like to get people to like tattoo or put onto their screensaver. It is better is better, more is not better.
I love that. That's so simple. Who created that?
I don't know. His name, I heard this from this guy, Sharon. He's in one of my coaching, and he's a super smart guy. Yeah. And it was the lesson from his $1 billion exit. And first lesson was, better is better, more is not better. Yeah. And I was like, man, that is so good, because like we always think more is better, and it's not. Better is better. Yeah. And like, that is just like the difference between the people that just like absolutely crush it and the people that are just like drowning in what they are doing. Right. They just think more, more, more. It's like, no, it's like, get better at what you're doing and keep getting better at it. And as you get better at things, you'll systemize them, you'll process them, then you could do more, but like, you don't have to necessarily go and do more to get better results.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. And what popped in my head as you were going through that was even like, look at John Lee Dumas. I mean, how he built his business was one podcast and one webinar that he did once a week. And that was it. Yeah. Like, those webinars would crush, and he was doing, this is, I don't know, 5 to 10 years ago, he was doing, I don't know what he does now, but he was doing like $3-4 million a year back then, just with one simple thing. And there was another guy, Brian Dean, who teaches a lot of SEO online, and he just like has a simple YouTube channel and like a blog. And then he launches like once a year, and he does like a couple $1 million a year just with one simple thing. But he does it really well. Like, he does the blogs really well. They're so detailed. There's like a mastery in what he does. And you could just tell he understands it deeper than everyone else. And for me, mastery is the next phase of what we're going to start teaching, because I think it's vital for messaging. But in order to get mastery, it's consistency and dedication. And you can't have that if you're like chasing 20 different rabbits, like you're not going to get it.
Yeah. It's impossible, and it's exhausting, and you lose all aspects of why you became an entrepreneur.
100%. Yeah. It steals your life for sure. Okay. So the next question I had was about, the virtual events and the benefits of doing them.
Yeah.
Remind me of what the three main benefits were that you mentioned to doing the virtual events.
Yeah. I mean, well, when you think about it, like it can help you build your audience
Okay.
because it's like a mechanism to do that. It will help you make more sales, and it will help you just expand your business as far as like making your sales in a shorter period of time versus like an extended period of time. So most people are, I don't know, in the coaching space, like selling every single day. They have sales mechanisms as far as like evergreen goes, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But it like consumes their life, right? And most people aren't the built out teams. They're not the sales teams. They are the sales mechanism themselves.
Yeah.
They are the salesperson. Like that's because that like they can sell their stuff better than anyone else. And anyone who has ever tried to build a sales team, that's hard. Or even a webinar itself, like webinars have it's a great methodology, but marketers have ruined it. Right.
Yeah.
And so people don't show up for webinars because they know it's like, it's not valuable.
Right.
Right. And so one of the things about events is it's a sales mechanism that's actually worth people's time, that they get a great feeling about you, your business, and what you're doing, whether they buy or not.
Right.
And what that does for your business is, compounds the growth of it because one, you're going to get sales from it if you do it correctly. But two, is it actually becomes one of these things that people tell people about.
Yeah.
Right. And that is so cool because like how many people refer people to watch webinars? Like
never.
No. Never
happens.
Yeah. So, but how many people like go to a live event or an event and they're like, that was life-changing. You have to go to it. Right. Now, it doesn't have to be life-changing, so I don't want to get to that. But
what is the difference between a webinar versus a virtual event? Is it just the time frame or is it just the whole experience? Like, what, in your opinion, what is the main difference between the two?
So the way that we teach it is not necessarily time; it's based off of outcome. Okay. So the way that we like to think about it is like a webinar is very much problem based, and your product is the solution to the problem. So the webinar is, here's my story, here's how I discovered the problem, here's the problems I see in the market with these 3 mistakes people are making, blah 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 blah, or 3 myths. And if you want to solve this problem that you now have because you've joined the webinar, here's my solution to that problem. Right.
Okay. Yep.
So maybe the value to get out of this is like a new belief, or it's the value is now you have a new problem that you didn't know you had before.
Yeah. Right? That's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's your thing. Right. So the thing with my events that we teach is I like to think of it as it's like the sampler approach, and it's always based off an outcome. Right. And so like very similar to like a grocery store that's giving out free samples of food. If you try the food and you like it, you're very more likely to go and buy the box of food that you just tried. Right. Similar to perfume, makeup, like it's giving you a sample of what it's like to try it on, to feel like what it is to be in the, like what it feels like to have it, to identify it, or to like, experience it. Well, similar with our events is there's always an outcome attached to the events where people get to sample some of your intellectual property. And so I'll give you an example of one of the events we do is we teach people how to design, fill, monetize, and run virtual events, online events, right? And so one of our workshops is simply, you come to the workshop, we will, for free, teach you from start to finish. We'll do the whole design aspect with you. We'll come up with the name, the outcome, what you're going to say, and the aspect. Now that you have the design for your virtual event, you're in momentum, you have a head start, you're feeling really good about it, you feel awesome because you've actually done something for the first time, valuable. And then we say, listen, now we want to help you fill it, monetize it, and run it through our coaching program, right?
Yeah. Love that.
It's kind of like so natural and so easy that it's like you don't have to be the salesperson. You literally do what you do best. You teach them, you instruct them, you coach them, and you give them something of value. And it's just like it's this shift of perspective that you don't need to be selling or marketing. You just need to like take a little bit of piece of like what you're already doing that's actually what's desirable in the market, and then just give them the extra pieces. So it's like there's this outcome that they want to get to, like building a really successful business. You give them one big step from A to B to build it, and now your program or your coaching or whatever is B to E, right? So it's like you get a little bit of a sample before it is. So to answer your question, it's not based off time, it's based off outcome that you're promising for your event.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and I love that. I think that's one of the things that I tell a lot of our students as well, is when you go to create like a headline or a title, I say, don't guess at it. Like, let's run some of those thought rehearsals or through play campaigns and let's get out there and see. But I said, but then when you find out the data, what you need to do is give them a very tangible, small promise that is a piece of what you do, because then it sets up the whole rest of the offer that's going to be coming. It's like the next logical step is that offer. And I think what happens to a lot of people on webinars or when they go to do the training is they try to take the whole enchilada, the whole pie, and they try to shove it into a 45-minute presentation. And it's just like either overwhelms people, or it's just all over the place, or it's just too much. It confuses people, or it tricks people into thinking they have everything they need, and then they go off and obviously they don't. So I love that approach. Are these events, when you put them on, are they usually paid, free? Does it matter? Is there benefits to either one?
So there is a good debate whether it should be paid or free, right? Mm-hmm. And you can do either or. Like I'm more of the approach of the one to many approach, using this perspective of giving someone the tangible outcome. But for me, like a sample is free, and I have like a premier VIP option, but the sample is free. And I think of it like this, where it's like, especially with, being a model to our clients, like it's much easier to get someone to register or opt in for something for free than to pay for it, right? Like that is one of the hardest things. Also, like I like to look at my own behavior with things too, right? Sometimes I'm just not ready to buy something from someone, and I'm just like, I wouldn't do it if it was paid.
Right.
And hey, if it's free, maybe I'm not going to attend the whole thing unless it's super desirable, right? I probably will if it's done right. But like, I'll at least opt into it or check it out to be like, interested in it, So we suggest that you have a free and like a paid part to it, especially if you're going to be using it on paid media, just to like start to offset. But like, there is something to say that, when you pay attention. And if you want lower numbers, but higher conversion, then you definitely go with a paid model. And you definitely are going to see that, you get a higher show up rate with people who pay, and you'll have a higher conversion rate as well. That being said, it adds more complexity to what you do. And, it kind of goes away a little bit again from what I'm trying to put into the marketplace, which is very similar to live event model in person, which is the sampler approach. They call it previews. Yeah. And so a preview in the live event model is like an hour to 3 hours long, and you preview the event and then they sell you a bigger event, right? This model's been around for like 50 years. Yeah. And for some reason, people aren't doing it online. So we're doing it, right? Yeah. And so we're giving you a preview to our coaching program. Now, we could sell a live event and sell then our coaching, but then it becomes complex. We want to keep things simple. So we preview it, and we also know that coaching is a huge aspect to getting people to actually do something, right? Versus like getting them to do it themselves, which people never end up doing anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. And then when we started talking, I was just like, well, no wonder our events, like I didn't know, we didn't know what we were doing. We're like, let's just do a 2-day boot camp. And like, we put on this event, and I remember the first time we did, I was just blown away. We had like 700 people show up live. I think the most before then was like 100. I think I had 100 people live on anything I'd ever done inside the company. And then we just did this boot camp because we were like, well, we need something in our runway. Let's do it. And then I just watching the like online ticker go, and it was like 100, 200, 250, 3, 4. And I asked a question, I'm like, where are you guys from? And the answers were coming in so fast. I'm like, I literally couldn't read them. It's like, and I was like, there's something going on. Like virtual, something with a virtual event is going on. And then we met and I was like, oh, this is genius. And I think, especially like you said, over the last 2 years, I think the way, because of COVID and how online content has been consumed the last 2 years, I think people are just literally trained that there's going to be a virtual something. Like you just go on the computer now. Like that's what you do. You just go on the computer. And so I think with COVID happening, it's kind of sped up the need for what you guys do. And I think for anyone listening, if you're not taking advantage of it in any degree, it's a massive disservice to you and your company. So with that being said, my last question about putting it all together is just kind of like the pitch. So when you go in to go make the offer, is that happen at the end of the event? Does it happen in the middle? Do people know there's an offer coming? Like how does that look? And then is there a limit to price points that you recommend? Like someone selling a $50 course, do they need to do an online event? Like what's the max and the minimum that people need to do this?
Super good questions. So you can choreograph it in many different ways, right? So if we're going to do like a 2-day event, like I'm going to be pitching on day one, because the law of prospects, the more people who see my offer, the better chance I have for higher conversion, as far as like, I don't have to make up for it on day two. I'll pitch on day one, then I'll repitch on day two, so that people can think about it and go through it and like go through that process. If I'm doing a 3-hour event, I could make a soft offer at the first hour and a half, and then at the other mark. For me, like I like to keep things really simple. For my 3-hour, it's all content, hot seats, and coaching throughout the first 2 hours. The last hour is pitch and Q&A, right? And that just makes it easy for everyone to get what they came for, to get the promise, and then hear it. And from the very start of it, I tell them my goal of this event is to work with them long term, right?
Love that.
I'm not hiding anything. And I think that's what people like, is like, here's the deal. I promise that this is going to be worth your time. I promise that this isn't a webinar that's full of fluff, that you're not going to walk away with something tangible. Here's what you're actually going to get if you stick through this, as like something that you want to check off your box, or that you want to actually do.
Right.
In return, I want to earn your business, right? I want to work with you long term. And so this is how the model works. I'm going to sample, give you some of my high paying private client stuff that, you pay me thousands of dollars to do for free, in return for you to listen to me and earn your trust, so that you can make a decision if you want to work with me or not.
Right.
People can love it, right? Like there's no like transition to offer. There's no like this negative feeling of like, the feeling that you get is really like, okay, we've knocked one thing off. Great. We've got a whole list of other things we got to do together. Here's my invitation to you to keep doing this with me if you want to. Right? It's a demonstration of what you can do, how you can do it in a very effective, scalable way. So whether you're doing this for 5 people or 10 people or 1,000 people, it's the same thing, right? The way that I like to do it. Okay, and then as far as price point goes, if you're selling a $50 product, it doesn't make sense to do this, right? There's so many easier ways. Like I could like literally go into chats and sell $50 stuff, right? Like you don't have to do that. Now that's not scalable, and you could totally sell a $50 stuff, and you can do this if you decide to make it that way. But to make this economically worth it, from what we think, if you're doing something free, it's $2,500 to $5,000. That's kind of like where I like to be. And the reason why is because, again, like usually what you're selling is like some sort of like complete package, right? It's like, we want to give you a sample of the outcome that you want to get. And now we want you to get to that outcome that we're going to get you there. Right. And usually something $50 is not going to get you there. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what we like to do. And then just like, it's easier. So like, if you put 20 people through your $5,000 program, like, and you do this on a monthly basis, you're making $100K a month. Right.
Yeah.
And so like the numbers start to add up with the complexity of not having a big business, a volume-based business, which is again something I learned in my dad's company that we did was it was volume-based.
Yeah.
Thousands of orders every single month.
Wow.
Like it becomes hard to manage.
Yeah.
And this actually becomes much easier to manage. And you also get to work with, the cream of the crop as far as people who are the most committed to making it work, which then helps your business more because they get more results, they get more traction. You use that in your events. It's like this cycle of betterness for your business, I guess.
Well, it is. And people, that was one of the questions I got at our last live event. Someone asked me, he's like, well, cause we raised our prices, like 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago or something like that. And they asked us why. And I said, because I want less students and the same amount of revenue. And the reason why is because I get to show up at a deeper, better level when there's not so many people. Yeah. And I'm like, we have lower level programs too. Like I still want my work to get out into as many hands as possible. But when I'm involved in the work, whether it be Q&As or calls and things like that, like I don't want 10,000 people on a call because that's going to be super draining. I'd rather, and the caliber of calls or questions are going to be way lower. I'd rather have higher caliber. So, I mean, all the same things that you guys, you're saying. I told you that was the last question. I do have one more, if that's okay. Which is,
let's keep rolling.
Okay, cool. So the last question is conversion rate. Like what's a typical conversion rate? There's 2 conversion rates I'm looking at. One is, from opt-in to show up, and then from opt-in to sale. Like what would be a normal conversion rate for those 2 things?
Yeah. So our show up rate ranges depending on where we're getting traffic from. Okay. But I would say on average, we're seeing anywhere from like around 30% show up rate, which I would say is still pretty standard with like a webinar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So it's not that much different again, because it's free. Now, if we were going to go paid, like our VIP, our show up rate is like 55%.
That's good.
All right. So like the people who pay attention, right? So we understand that.
Yep.
Since we make a higher end offer, right? We don't make offers to people who don't attend. And
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And we don't do that just because like, it's harder to push something that they haven't had the sample for yet.
Right.
Right. It's like if you register for a live event in person and you don't show up, they're not sending you flyers of buying like the deal of the event, right? Like their goal is to like sell you something at the event. So we use that model. Now, we do try to push people to book calls and stuff like that, like after if we need to, but like our focus is really on the attendees and those people. So right now we convert about 10% of attendees.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah. And again, this is at a higher end offer with what we do. Now, again, that's going to range with people. It's going to range with, you and what your offer is. Right. But like our clients, the first thing we work on is creating a really, really good offer, right? Like it is like the offer is what makes it. So like we had this one guy, his name is Jason, newer to our group, just started promoting his event and had some people I don't want to go to the event. I want to go into your program. Like, I'm really interested in what you're doing. And he presented his offer that we worked on, and he made $12,000 before his event because they were like, your offer is way too good. It's so good that I can't say no to. And the big book right now is Alex Hormozi's $100 million offer, which everyone should read. We actually teach his process and give him credit throughout. And we use our methodology plus his, and we get people to create these offers that are so good that people can't say no to them. Right. To the right person.
What's his name? Alex what?
Hormozi.
Okay.
Yeah. So good. Oh, it's amazing. And so, that's the first thing is it's got to have a really good offer, and then you're going to have a really good conversion. Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, 10%, that's on something that's high ticket. That's unheard of. I mean, when we do our launches, I would be stoked if we hit 2 or 3% on what we do. And obviously it's a volume play. It's like, we're just trying to get as many leads as we can through the funnel. And if we can convert 2 or 3%, but to have something at 10%, and we do live events with our students and upsell them, and there we'll usually hit 10%.
Right.
Usually, but that's also what like people that have been through our program are completely warm traffic, just need more support. So to have 10% off of like cold traffic of people that are showing up, like that's pretty crazy. Like that's really good. Like really good.
Yeah. And again, like, that's going to be a mix of like, if I was looking at only cold traffic, I'm sure the conversion rate would probably be less. So
okay,
like
so it's warm and they're built in there.
Probably it's a mix of people that are in the ecosystem. And another thing like to bring up with people, and there are actually two things I really want to cover, because I think they're going to be like questions people are going to have. So the first thing is like, when people think about like these online events, they think about, I think it's exhausting because you have to keep creating all these different events.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And this is one of the things that I really want to make sure that everyone's like understanding is like, you have what we call a signature event for your brand. And like, this is what every live event person that uses this mechanism has. Like, you look at Tony Robbins, got Unleash the Power Within. You look at my dad, who was Millionaire Mind Intensive. You look at some of these other people, like their front end event stays the same and has been running for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. They don't change it. It's micro changes in that event to make it better. Right. And the online space is so offer fatigue, like style, that they just like, they change things so much. And it's like, you don't have to change your event. You might just have to change the front of the event, right? Like what are they seeing in front instead of the event? So one of the important things to understand is like, don't worry about like creating different stuff, because that's how you're going to get burnt out. You want to create one thing, simplicity, remember, one sales mechanism, which is your event. So that's number one. Number two is like, most people, well, not most people, but a lot of people have attended the same event live or online more than once.
Right.
Right. And I've had many people attend our event like multiple times. It's like, and like maybe the second or third time they buy, which is fine, and they want to go through the same stuff, but it's because they learn something new every single time. Right. And so, understanding that like the event becomes like this compounding asset for you that brings in your current ecosystem as a monetization strategy, but also an audience building strategy as far as like something to get people to latch onto your brand. And so if they don't end up buying, remember, you've got this goodwill of sampling stuff that they might come back, or they look at you differently than other people in the marketplace. So, I think like for us, like our numbers are getting better and better because it's compounding and getting better, right? Like when we were starting, like obviously it was a mix of figuring it out versus like, just starting the event. And so I was actually on a clubhouse, which I rarely go on, but a clubhouse with Brian Tracy and Les Brown. Yeah. And Brian was talking about getting into the events, and his first event had like 13 people at it. And his second event had 17 people. By the end of the year, he had 100 people. 50 years later, he's like one of the most known people ever in this space, right? This is not like a one-time strategy. Like this is like a long-term strategy. And so what the mindset we get people to latch onto is like, if it's aligned with your strengths, if it's aligned with what you want to do, like this isn't just like you do it once, you're done. Like this is how you create your business model, right? Yeah. And I love that because like it gets people to think long-term, and it gets people to think like this is an asset that I can continue to use over time, and it shouldn't fatigue if I do it right? So
yeah, and I love that people will come in multiple times, and that's kind of a very similar philosophy that I have with our messaging. Is I'm like, you should be repeating yourself a lot. Like if you're not, then your messaging is all over the place. And I tell people it's because your audience, they're different. Like when they hear it the second time, they're different people than they were the first time, which means the lens in which they see the world or they receive information changes. So the way you say it or the way it lands with them will be completely different than the first time they heard it. And it sounds like it's a very similar thing that you guys experience as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. We're actually adapting our entire launch that we have coming up for 2022 away from video series, which is what we've done for so many years.
Oh, wow.
And so we're not doing a video series, a pre-recorded video series, just because, I mean, the proof has been in the pudding. Like it's just been like our people show up for our boot camps more than they were showing up. Like we would premiere the video series live. We were getting twice the amount of people showing up. And then James Wedmore just did a live launch as well, and his numbers were like through the roof. And so we're going to be embracing live boot camps and then a live launch, which is going to be like a 3-day event for our launch. And so, I mean, I believe in what you're doing, like to the core, because like you said, it is a business model that has worked for 50 years. It's just the medium in which it's being done is changing, and you're kind of leading the way with that. So I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your knowledge on it. And I'm going to have to hit you up when we get closer to our launch.
I can't wait. Yeah, you're mixing volume with this mechanism, which I believe is what James did, and you get to see like what that does when you mix live elements with massive volume, right?
Yeah.
Multiple 7 figures is where you're going with. But now, like, that's just created a huge ecosystem for him of people who are just like, can't wait to get their hands on whatever he has to offer next, whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
100%. I mean, it just makes sense. Like, this is just the way the world has been going. It's what people have been trained to do. It's how people have been trained to consume content. And it's just a proven business model. So we're adapting and we're heading full force into it. And I'm a little nervous, but also really excited because it will be a pretty big change for us. But we'll see how it goes. If people wanted to learn more about you, where can they go to follow you, contact you, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So you can follow me on Instagram. You could Jesse Jesse _ Eker Eker. I also have a very active Facebook group with almost 10,000 people in it. And I do quite a bit in there. And you can actually, it's Build Your Brand Online. You can check that out. And then I think we have a link. It's buildyourbrandonline.com/new-gen. And that's going to probably bring to one of our events or a waiting list or something fun, like a guide or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but for your audience, we have stuff like that. But yeah, you can find me around, and I'd love to have anyone at the event so they can just see what it's like. And we do this again, like we do this once a month. So we really practice just like how energy efficient launch-like results can be without launching your business.
Yeah.
And that is really cool to get like influxes of cash flow every single month with something so simple that you just keep doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So
it's super efficient. What was the URL one more time?
I think it's buildyourbrandonline.com/new-gen.
Okay, guys. So that's buildyourbrandonline.com/new-gen. Please go opt in and check out what he's doing. Even if you don't think you're ready for an event, I can tell you right now, just from my own personal experience, this is one of the easiest ways to really generate sales, but also kind of build that audience and also build a very deep rapport. I think the world and where we're heading will require more connection and more rapport being built with your audience. And honestly, if we're going to be online, one of the easiest ways to do that is to actually spend time with them, adding value, like getting to know them. It will speed up the process of how connection is actually built. Jesse, we always end every episode with rapid fire questions. So I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and then you can 1-word answer it or 2-sentence answer, whatever you want to do. But are you ready for that?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Do you make more decisions with your head or your heart?
Oh, that was a good one. I want to say head.
Head. Okay. Do you see yourself more as an operator, or visionary, or are you a blend of both?
I would say I'm more of a visionary.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting. More of the operators always say head, and usually more of the visionaries will say heart. So you're one of the rare who are like visionary, but
I'm like the quick start entrepreneur, like get going, but I know where I'm going, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In what context? Any context?
Anyone you want.
In 5 years from now, I see myself doing the same thing.
I love it. And then do you believe entrepreneurship should be taught in schools?
I mean, it should be the leading curriculum. No, I think in school there needs to be a mandatory. I guess it would be exposure to what employee life versus entrepreneur life is like.
I agree. I mean, I just think that's the way it's going to be going in the future. I think because of lack of jobs and AI and software and robots coming in, replacing jobs, that I think people are going to have to make their own money at some point. So I
also
agree.
like TikTok and YouTube and all those people making all that money, like all the kids are going to want to model that. So like they're going to start, if you don't start adapting, they're going to start leaving.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Last question. If there was one pivotal moment that you had to choose that had the biggest and most significant change in your life, what was that moment?
I want to say when my wife told me she was pregnant with our first child.
Wow. It's a beautiful one. This might be too personal, so let me know if it is, but was that planned or an accident, your first child?
It was planned, but it happened way faster than we thought it would.
Yeah. Okay. I know how that feels. that was my second. She's like, we should start trying.
Go for it. Yeah. Oh my God, it's here? No.
That was totally like our first one took a really long time. And then so she's like, we should start on the second one now because it's going to take forever. And it was like a month later, she was like, hey, I'm pregnant. I'm like, wait, what? I thought it was going to take So I get that. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for you spending some time with myself and the audience. And for everyone, again, please go to, buildyourbrandonline.com / buildyourbrandonline.com / new gen for you. Yeah. Awesome. All right, man. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And for those of you who have not left us a review on iTunes, please head over and do that now and let us know what you think about the podcast. I would be so grateful and appreciate that. And for everyone else, I'll see you guys next week. Take care, everyone. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.